yes, that's a
Yeah,
newest.
it's kind of...
Sophie Pearce wasn't the only Irish woman to make her mark on the history of aviation and flying. Author Michael Traynor has spent the last 8 years researching the lives of other Irish women who often went where few had gone before.
They came from aristocracy, from gentry backgrounds. They had good lives, they had money at the time, and they had time to kill. So in the early 20s, some of them had to go to the UK to do their pilot training. And some of them even bought their own aircraft, or obviously got their rich daddy or their husband to fund the price of an aircraft for them.
Lillian Bland from Belfast wasn't content with just flying planes.
She was a very intelligent lady. She went to an air display in England in the 1909, and she came home and she sat in her house and started drawing and designing her own aircraft based on having met some of the early pioneers and some of the early aircraft designers. So she persisted until she got it to fly as a glider, and then she bought an engine over in England, and going down a hill with 4 policemen ably assisting her, she was able to take off and become the first woman to fly in the world.
Cecile O'Brien from Cork was another trailblazer. Sadly, flying would cost her her life.
She was raised in a castle down near Mallow, Lahore Castle. Eventually the family moved back to London where she was born, but at that stage she'd learned to fly, and there was 3 women flying together at the London Aeroplane Club. Lady Heath, Limerick lady, Lady Bailey from Monaghan, and Cecile. The 3 of them were known as the Stag Lane Trio. They certainly enjoyed air racing in those days, not alone air racing, but altitude records they set, as well as endurance tests. Sadly, many died, including, sadly, Cecile O'Brien became the first Irish female to die in an air crash in 1931.
Before becoming a nun, Margaret Bailey Butler from Waterford enjoyed the freedom of the skies.
She went out to Kildonan, which was one of the Cattles airfields out in North County Dublin. It was the first airfield, really, civil airfield, long before Dublin Airport. And she used to cycle out there with her friend, and then eventually she took lessons and got her licence. But as soon as she got her licence, she joined the nuns.
Oh, it was a great risk in those days. You know, we had nothing, no connection with the earth at all. You weren't depending on instruments and depending on men in a control tower telling you things. You see, we were very free. When you went out for a lesson, you could take off whenever you liked. Now, that day when I was out at Iona, we had to wait until Dublin Airport told us to go. And I didn't like that kind of thing.
So you're a nun who doesn't like discipline then, is that right?
Oh, I don't mind discipline, but I don't like being ordered about by men.
A woman from Achill Island in County Mayo, Nancy Corrigan, managed to fulfil a dream after she emigrated to the United States.
Nancy came from the poorest of areas of Achill, and when she was 16, her mother saw no future for Achill, so her 4 daughters were one by one taken over to America. Cleveland, Ohio being the, if you want to call it, the link town in America for a lot of the Achill people. And she went over, she got a job, as a lot of the young girls did then, as housemaids or nursemaids in the big wealthy families of Cleveland. And secretly she was slipping away unbeknownst to her family and her employer, and she was taking flying lessons. And the first they knew about it was when she was about 19, and on the front page of the Cleveland Dealer was about this young lady who soloed in 4.5 hours.
So after 4.5 hours instruction, she was flying on her own?
Correct, yes. Not many guys will do that today. She ended up during the Second World War training US Air Force cadets to fly.
There's a proud record of women in aviation in Ireland and the world, and thanks to the research of Michael and others like him, their legacy lives on.
I've been flying myself for about 40 years, but I still, as I was researching each of those chapters, I was admiring what they achieved back, in the 20s and 30s. And I just think they had great guts. They were brave women in a lot of cases. For the families of those ladies, their legacy was almost forgotten until I did the draft of the 12 chapters and sent them off to the various families, and they hadn't realised what their grandmother had done and achieved because it just simply was forgotten about by families even.